What I want to talk today about is creating chain reactions. This is one of the most powerful things that can happen, especially when you're creating new habits. We talked about it with these live writing sessions, that when you show up, when you do what you say you're going to do, when you honor that commitment to yourself and maybe other members here of the accountability group, you build up that self-command, you build up that self-confidence, and it creates a chain reaction in other areas of your life. Many of you have told me that by showing up to these live writing sessions, you've been able to show up to more things that maybe you were struggling with, completely unrelated to writing. And that's what happens when we create these positive chain reactions. Now, Webster's dictionary defines a chain reaction as a series of events so related to each other that each one initiates the next. A number of events triggered by the same initial event. So, wouldn't it make sense for us to really study what causes a chain reaction of successful events in our lives? And I'm reminded of a couple quotes that I just cannot stop thinking about, and I really leaned into, especially this year. The first one is from John C. Maxwell. He says, "You'll never change your life until you change something you do daily. The secret of your success is found in your daily routine." So for years, I was complaining about my circumstances, but then I wasn't changing my circumstances. I was doing the same things every day. Nothing was really changing. And today, one of my favorite things is doing something that I do every day now, multiple things that I wasn't doing last year or 5 years ago when I was complaining. And so if you're doing new things, if you're showing up here to Unchained Writer, and you weren't at Unchained Writer last year or the year before, you're doing something new, which you should get excited about because you can expect new and different results. All right, another quote that I recently read from James Clear. "Rome wasn't built in a day, but they were laying bricks every hour." I love that. So you're doing something, even small things, laying bricks. Think about it. Just laying a brick, stacking the bricks. Sometimes when you show up to a live writing session, maybe you can only do 30 minutes, or maybe you were distracted half the time, or maybe you just weren't satisfied with your progress. 100 words is better than no words. You stacked another brick. There's another quote from a book that I read quite a while ago, but I'm reminded of as I was putting together this training, from Gary Keller's The One Thing. And the main question throughout this book is, what's the one thing I can do such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary? So I'm going to focus on that easier part of that quote. What's the one thing that I can do such that by doing it, everything else will be easier? And that everything else that I'm talking about here is other successful habits, that chain reaction, right? So let me break this down for you. I like to think about, and he even gives this example in the book, the one thing as a domino. So we all know dominoes. You knock one domino down, it knocks down a whole bunch of other dominoes. A chain reaction, right? So if I'm thinking about my life, and I want you to do the same thing here and think about your life as a series of dominoes. We've got a lot of things that we want to improve, a lot of things that we want to be better. As I was looking at this year, I wrote down a few things. I want to improve my eating habits. I want to eat more healthy. I want to improve my sleep. I want to sleep better. Who doesn't want more self-confidence? And I want to improve my cognitive performance. And so if these were goals, I'm thinking through, okay, how can I achieve all these things? And I'm writing these down. And if I was writing these down in the form of a page and a goal sheet, I'm like, okay, improve eating habits, improve my sleep, improve my self-confidence, improve my cognitive performance. What are all the steps that I can do to accomplish each one of these things? And we all have a number of these. I mean, this is just 4 that I pulled out from my personal life. I have many, many more. But if I think through just these, it can quickly get overwhelming. Like, I'm trying to do and focus on all of these things. But what if, another magic question, what if it were easy? What if there was one thing that I could do that by doing that one thing, all of these would sort of happen automatically? Almost sounds too good to be true, but it creates a chain reaction of success. So let me give you this example. I thought through this and experimented with this in several different areas. This is just one example. What I found was that simply by exercising, all of these other things automatically improved. By exercising, I naturally wanted to eat more healthy. If I exercised first thing in the morning, I increased my self-command. Somehow my willpower increased. I didn't want to like blow all the hard work I've done and eat terribly the rest of the day. So I naturally ate healthier on the days that I exercise. I naturally slept better on the days that I exercised. The more I exercise, the more self-confidence I naturally have. And the more I exercise, there's multiple studies, we all know it, it's super good for the brain. So my cognitive performance also increased. Now, I was just focusing on doing the one thing, exercise, daily in some form. And by that happening, automatically, I wasn't even purposely thinking about all these other things, but I noticed them happening. So think through your life and think through what is the one big domino in 1 to 3 areas that you can focus on that ends up knocking down so many other areas. So what I've done is I've thought through this and taken the top 3. Our brain likes to think in threes, if you didn't know that. Think of the top 3 things. And so what I've done is I broke them down, and I'm going to give you my examples here. So my top 3 things that have caused the biggest chain reaction of success are these 3. Number 1, write. Number 2, plan. And number 3, workouts or exercise. So for me, I create a lot of content. I'm a content creator. I'm a trainer. I'm a coach. I had to create this content that I'm teaching you right now. But guess where it all starts? It all starts with writing. Everything starts with writing. I want to increase my cognitive performance. I want to think more clearly. I want to be able to decrease my anxiety. All of these things, writing will improve. I want to create more content. Right. I want to know what I'm thinking. Right. I want to get better ideas. Right. So I figured out that writing, committing to writing every day, will increase so many other areas that I want and need to happen. Same thing with planning. I want to feel less frazzled and I want to feel more in control. How do I get that feeling? Plan. I realized one of the things I was neglecting was planning. Just spending 20 minutes doing nothing else but just planning. Taking time to plan, taking time to think, automatically increased so many other areas of my life. Planning also increased my profits. If I planned out promotions appropriately, if I planned out newsletters, planned out course creation. If I didn't plan, you've all heard the quote, if you fail to plan, then you plan to fail. Planning helps me feel more in control. Planning helps me execute and stay in that execution mode instead of the reaction mode, reacting to things and reacting to what feels urgent instead of planning and being in control. And then working out, I just talked about. It automatically knocks down so many other dominoes. And so I've translated this in sort of a more fun way. I've taken those top 3 things, and if you think about them in terms of jars, I particularly like these mason jars. They're cheap. You can find them everywhere. You can order them on Amazon. And I've talked about this before. I have used this for quite a long time, and I cannot believe how much of a difference this silly little hack makes. So what am I talking about? Well, I've taken these 3 big dominoes, and I've created 3 jars out of them. And I took a picture of, these are my actual jars here. All right, this is what it looks like on my desk. So here they are. A jar for writing, a jar for planning, and a jar for my workouts. Now, I like to use a number of different things in these jars. I like to use these glass colored beads because I love color coding stuff. And I also like to use quarters, currency. And so for my writing and planning jars, and I literally have them right here. So this is my plan jar. Every time I do my daily goal of sitting down to plan for 20 minutes. Now remember, you've got to use the step 1 and step 2 technique we talked about in the previous Cup of Joe. You've got to say when, where, and for how long you're going to do the thing. So for each one of these jars, when am I going to plan? Where am I going to plan? And how long am I going to plan? So when, it's usually on my calendar every morning for 20, 25 minutes, right? Usually like to think of like a Pomodoro session. And I do the same thing for my writing jar. All right. Has to go on the calendar. Every time I do one of those things successfully, I get to take one of these little glass beads and plop it in there. Now, it is amazing how much this little reward can excite you. Putting this silly little glass bead in one of these jars. It sounds so trivial, but trust me, until you've done it, there are days when I haven't felt like sitting down to plan, but knowing that I won't get to put my silly blue bead in this jar is what helps me overcome that resistance. I almost can't believe it. I almost have to laugh at myself, going, all right, I really want to put that stupid little glass bead in my jar. Now, the same thing with working out, but I do this a little bit different. I really like to use quarters for this because I feel like the whole use it or lose it, we've all heard that, use it or lose it. I sort of feel like that's how it is with our health, our fitness, right? Our muscles. If we don't use them, we lose them. And so I like to use actual currency in there because I feel like I'm using that currency, and I sort of play this little game with myself that if I don't use it, obviously with quarters or currency, you got to go and you've got to get some change, right? If you don't have quarters, you got to go to the bank and get a roll of quarters. And so I have another cup of just all quarters, and when I complete a workout, I take it, I get to put it in the thing. Now, if I don't do that, and usually I like to play a game with myself, like by the end of the year, if I don't fill up my mason jar of quarters, then I lose it. I've got to go donate that money or give that money to somebody else. And I also like to do the same thing with writing, sometimes using quarters and currency. So you just got to play with it a little bit, think through it in your own life, and see what feels like it gives you that little jolt. So think through the little things that you could put, and these don't have to be mason jars. Heck, you can just use a glass that you've got in your pantry right now. You could use a plastic cup. You could use a jar, a bowl, a dish, whatever it is. You don't have to use glass beads. You can use anything you've got around the house. You could use scrap pieces of paper. But I encourage you to try this little hack. So a quick review. Think through the top 3 things, the top 3 biggest dominoes that would automatically knock down so many other things that you want to improve. And then transfer those 3 things to jars, bowls, mason jars, or whatever it is. Put the when, where, and how long on your calendar that you're going to do those things, preferably daily. And so if it's not something you can do daily, think about breaking that task down to its simplest form of something you can do daily. Remember the rules, because you have to stick to the rules. It's got to be on your calendar. You've got to do them daily, or at least very, very frequently. And then give yourself the fun reward of putting the glass bead, the quarter, the dollar bill, whatever currency you're using, whatever it is you want to put in these jars. So you've got the overriding of the primal brain involved here. Every time you override that primal brain, you're literally retraining your brain to use your rational prefrontal cortex more. And then you're also adding the reward when you've done it. So you're going to have this intrinsic reward, but you're also going to have this fun little external reward. And I have just been completely shocked by how much this little external reward helps. And the other benefit of that is I love seeing this visual cue. I can look across the room and I can see either there's progress or there's not. It's yes or no. It's no guessing. It's not judging myself by my best intentions. These are actions, not intentions. Intentions don't go in the jar. So there's no lying to yourself either. And the more you add to the jar, the more motivating it is, and the more you'll want to stay on track and keep up with it.